Hello and welcome to tutorial number 3. Those of you who have seen tutorial number 2 will recall me saying that I would do another tutorial regarding what I call a difficult project. When migrating a project that has titles created with Title Pro 6 into a Title Pro 7 environment, some titles will behave as they should. I dealt with that situation in tutorial number 2. However, I have experienced titles that don't behave as they should. For some reason, the title timeline length becomes incompatible with the generated media length on the host's timeline. In this video, I will demonstrate the symptoms of this incompatibility and show how it can be overcome. Okay, here we are in Vegas Pro 17. The first thing I want to say is that if your editing software has any kind of automatic save function, then that needs disabling now. Vegas Pro 17 has something called Live Save, which will overwrite the existing project if there are any edits done. We don't want that to happen because if something goes wrong, the original Title Pro 6 project will be overwritten with a Title Pro 7 project because we're now in a Title Pro 7 environment. So I've unchecked that to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm now going to open a project that has titles generated with Title Pro 6 that I know are or will be difficult to convert. This is the one. I'm just now going to open that. Now if we look at the first title, you can see that there's the message that I mentioned in the last tutorial, and that is because the project can't read any title files, so it's having to cache the titles in memory. It will cache this one and the next one, each one in turn, until it reaches the last one. This will take some time, so I will see you in a short while. Okay, that's the last title to be cached. I'll point out that the message here doesn't update automatically. Notice that I had to keep moving the playhead backwards and forwards to find out when it had finished caching. Right, what I'm going to do now is because I want to preserve the original version 9 as a Title Pro 6 version, I need to save this as a different version. So I'm going to save it as version 10 and put TP7 at the end to signify that when I've converted this, it will be a TP7 compatible project file. Now you remember I said that this project had titles that were difficult to convert. I'm just going to show you what I mean by that. These titles should have intros and outros. An intro, okay. No outro. Intro, okay. No outro. And that will occur for all these titles. The exception on this project file is the main title, which has an intro and an outro. I now need to open Title Pro 7. And if I click on this icon on the media, generated media, that will open up Title Pro 7. This first one is the main title. That's the one that wasn't affected. It had an intro and an outro. And the reason that happened was because these two values here, time values, are legal pairings. In tutorial number 2, I explained this briefly. A valid combination of these figures, these values, is when the length of the Title Pro timeline is less than or equal to the length of the generated media on the Vegas Pro timeline. So you can see why this is a valid combination. 13 seconds, 11 frames for each one. And that's why the title works correctly. You can just go to the next one. You will see that the Title Pro timeline length is 10 seconds and the generated media length is 5 seconds and 17 frames. So that is an illegal combination. I don't know why sometimes it does that, but it's something that needs correcting. Just go down these one at a time and you'll see that they all have that illegal combination. 10, 526. And the way that causes the problem is, if I just bring the playhead there and just set it going, you will see that it reaches a certain point and then reverts to the beginning. Well, not quite to the beginning. So you can see it acts very oddly. Never gets to the outro here. So that's why there's extra work involved in converting this particular project file. Having explained that, the next procedure is to make all these titles unshared. They've all got the default name title, so it's a bit tricky to figure out which title is sharing with which title. So I'm going to make all these unshared. Okay, they're all now unshared. That means they're individual titles and they don't share their design with any other title. I can now go ahead and save all these titles to an external file. Let's start with the first title. I'll just maximize this window and go to File, Save As. Go to my project and create a new folder called Titles. You don't need to do that. You can save the titles in the root or anywhere else for that matter. But I like things nice and organized, so I'm going to save them in an individual folder called Titles. Now I know that this one is the main title, so I'm going to call that main title. Go to the next one. I know this one is the second title on the Vegas Pro timeline, and it's a lower third, so I'm going to call that lower third, and because it's the first lower third on the timeline, I'm going to call it 01. You see how the name changes under the name column of the title list. This one is lower third 02 because it's the second lower third on the timeline. I'll just whiz through these and see you in a while. Okay, that's all the titles saved with unique names. See the tooltip there? You need to ignore that because that isn't possible. You cannot edit the name from here because that name is the name of the file name. That's a throwback from Title Pro 6 and it's not been taken out. Right, the next thing I want to do is to show you what can happen if this project is closed down without saving. So I'm going to close Title Pro 7 down with the green tick. Close that down. Now you see up here there is no asterisk. There's usually an asterisk there to prompt you that something has changed and it needs saving. So what I'm going to do now is to not save and close the project down without saving. So that's closed down without saving. I'm now going to open it back up again. So we go to version 10, Title Pro 7. And look at the titles. There we go. All the titles have reverted to the default state. Now in this case it's not disastrous because we've saved the titles before I closed it. So what I need to do now is to go back into Title Pro 7 and recover all those titles that were saved. So I know that this is the main title, so I'm going to open. I get a prompt to say, do I want to save? That's this title. I don't want to save, so I'll click don't save, and I'll select main title and open, and that gives me the title back again. I can realize why it's important that you save them in the order that they were on the Vegas Pro timeline, because I now know which title comes next. Open, don't save, lower third 01. Title, open, don't save, lower third 02. Okay, I'm going to carry on down here and I'll see you in a short while. Okay, so that's all the titles recovered and still all unshared. Now what I have to do is to correct these titles to make sure that this length here is less than this length here. Now I've checked all these titles, and the one with the shortest length here is lower third 7. So I'm going to work on this one first. So I need to make this length less than this length. So if I make that 0500, which is 5 seconds, you can see that the timeline has been reduced to 5 seconds. The problem is now that the keyframes now are a lot less than what they were originally. It's squashed everything up. So that's what I have to correct now. Now I want to make these keyframes 1 second from the end, 1 second apart. We'll do that with those two. That's the outro. And do that with the intro. I'll just grab this pause marker there, because that pause marker has always got to be in between the intro and outro. It's all to do with the elastic timeline feature of Title Pro 7, which I'll not cover now. So if I now play that, you'll see that we now have the correct intro and outro. Not quite, because that's a little bit off. I need to figure out why that is doing that. Okay, that took a little bit of figuring out, but I think I've sorted it. Some weird effects are initiated by these two being incompatible, and you saw that there. Even though the keyframes were in the right position, the two masks didn't react as they should do. And all I've done to correct it is to shorten the element's length on the timeline, so you can see it's one frame under 5 seconds, and that now appears to be working okay. As I said, reasonably difficult to do. Okay, so now I have one title working correctly. Now this is one of the beauties of design sharing. I know that lower third 7 works correctly. So if I share all the designs that are the same as this design with 7, all their weird timelines should be put right. So if I click the down arrow for lower third 6 and pick 7, I have now shared lower third 6 with lower third 7. So these two designs are the same. If I click on lower third 6, we'll find that it now is identical to lower third 7. And after it's been cached, which is signified by the circle going round, I can now play the title, and you can see that that now is performing correctly. Now the next title should be the same design, so I'll now share that with 6. You can see that it's the same design, even though the timeline scale has been changed, and it's caching now, showed by these two symbols. Also, you'll notice that the design sharing takes the name of the top, not the top, but the highest name in the title list for that particular design. So these all become shared with lower third 5, even though the original correct design was lower third 7. Lower third 4 is the same one, so I will share that with lower third 5. Again, that should work as it should do. It's caching at the moment, so I'll not bother trying that. Lower third 3 is the special one with this extra element in, so I can't share that with lower third 4, because if I do that I will lose that design. So I've got to leave that for a moment. Lower third 2 is the same as lower third 4, so I will share that with lower third 4. Lower third 1 is the same, so I'll share that with lower third 2. So the only unshared titles now are the main title, which doesn't need changing, and lower third 3, which does need changing. So if I reduce that a little bit, I've got keyframes on these two rectangles, which are the masking rectangles. So the first thing I want to do is look at that. That's 516. So I'll change this to 5 again. 5 seconds. Zoom in on that. Oops, too far. And bring these two keyframes to the 4-second mark. And these two keyframes to the 1-second mark. Now with a bit of luck, this one will work correctly. We'll just wait till it caches, signified by these two symbols. Now if I try that and see what happens. That one works okay. Doesn't need any tinkering with. I'll just stop that one. Now all these titles are correct now. I don't need to save them, because when I click the check mark, the green check mark, these changes will be saved automatically. Just gotta wait till these cache out. Okay, all those are now cached. So I'm now going to close Title Pro down, which will save the changes to the titles. I'm going to now close the project. Now this will ask me to save the project because we've got a little star, the asterisk there. So I'll close it and save the changes. Now I'm going to reopen it. And you'll see that immediately the titles work, because the project has read the title files and all the caching data. So there's no waiting for rendering or anything like that. So that's it. That's how to convert a relatively difficult Title Pro 6 project to a Title Pro 7 compatible project. Some projects will be easy, like the project I did in tutorial number 2. Some will be relatively difficult, like this one. And I suspect there are some projects which have titles that are a very complex design with many keyframes, many elements that will be very difficult to convert and maybe not worth the effort if not needed. Well, I hope that's been useful. Hopefully you don't find yourself in the situation where you have to do this, but if you do have to do it, you have some idea of how to achieve it. I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.